Now, for what's tipping the scales of justice in the Ponzi scheme murder trial of Natalie Cochran, the pharmacist accused of killing her husband, Michael, by injecting him with a lethal dose of insulin. Well, day one kicked off Wednesday with the defense opening statement saying that Michael Cochran suffered from substance abuse.
Mr. Cochran fancied himself to be a bodybuilder. He wanted to be the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Universe. And what did he do to that in that regard? Mr. Cochran has imported, well, let's call it medication, from Mexico, online, from sources that were not approved by any FDA or any legitimate American government sources. And he was taking medication, steroids, that were not for human consumption.
So they're saying he was taking steroids, and that's what caused his death. So Cochran has already pleaded guilty to running a Ponzi scheme that defrauded people out of millions of dollars. She's serving an 11-year-long prison sentence, and she's looking at potentially life in prison if she's convicted of murder. We're asking this morning, is the drug abuse defense an effective one? Could it tip the scales? Let's bring in our criminal defense attorney experts, Michael J. Brown and John Phillips. John, would you start us off here? You like this defense or not?
It's interesting. You know, you always look to try to blame the victim and cast any dispersions you can. And here, you know, the use of steroids is kind of multifaceted, right? It's, okay, he's engaged in illegal behavior, it was mood altering, and it made him so very sick at times that, you know, of course she didn't have anything to do with this. He took his own life in a way by these illegal drugs that, you know, are prescribable, I guess, not, you know, used according to prescription here.
Sure.
They got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where they're starting. I mean, it has a lot of people going, huh? You know, and we know the prosecution, Michael J. Brown, is saying that, look, she poisoned her husband. She used insulin to do it. They say it was so that he wouldn't discover her Ponzi scheme that was ripping off their family and their friends to support their lavish lifestyle. Curious what you think of the defense theory here and whether it'll work.
Well, I think a couple of things, Julie. In terms of the cause of death, anytime you can attack the actual cause of death and attribute it to something other than the defendant's actions, that's helpful. That's something that the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. In addition to that, in terms of the Ponzi scheme, you never have to prove motive. That's never an element, but I have to tell you from a practical standpoint, and I know both you and John know this from your trial work, juries want to hear about a motive. They want to know why somebody would kill somebody, especially when it's their spouse, the father of their children. So here, the prosecution alleges, well, you know what? He discovered this Ponzi scheme and he was going to turn her into the federal authorities. Well, the defense has really hammered away at the fact that, no, he was in on it. He knew about it. He was actually spending part of the proceeds. So that kind of takes away that motive aspect. So I do like both of those parts. The one thing I want to add, in addition, I hope the defense uses the Ponzi scheme in their favor. What I mean by that is, obviously it came in that there was a pretrial ruling, but now you have somebody who's very calculated, very intelligent, and she was able to run this Ponzi scheme. Well, just the same, you need to flip that in your favor and say, hey, if she's that somebody who takes such precautions and planning, you think she's going to actually kill her husband by simply injecting him with insulin with neighboring witnesses around? So that's something that I hope they use in their defense, as opposed to just the prosecution using it.
Yeah, great points. Michael, thank you for that. I want to get both of your impressions of the defense attorney Matthew Victor, because you both know, you know, likability matters in the courtroom. It does, even if you have an unlikable client. You know, if you're likable as the advocate, you know, sometimes you could, you know, have the jury, not focus so much on your client and their behavior. So, John Phillips, what did you think of the defense attorney? I'm gonna play a, or, you know, let me just ask you that question before we play the next clip. What did you think of his work?
You had to go to me first here. You know, bar rules and I'm licensed in 8 states, really don't love when we comment on other counsel or judges. But I harken back to the movie My Cousin Vinny, right, which we all loved. Mm-hmm. There's a point where Vinny is great and entertaining and charismatic and kind of whimsical. There's a point where he's annoying. And I'm not sure with this attorney and kind of his style, how that will just, work with the jury.
Gotcha. The accent, I have to tell you, I love the accent. As soon as he opened his mouth and started talking, I'm here for it. Michael J. Brown, what'd you think of him?
I'll agree with John on his assessment. We don't like to,
sure.
make negative comments on our colleagues. But one of the things that I picked up, and I think both of you probably did too, which I do like, when you showed the opening pictures, Julie, and you showed the defendant, she was with her husband, very striking woman. And I think what they did, and I hope this is intentional, they kind of made her into a librarian. If you look at her look now, they've really softened up her look, the glasses, the hair, and they really toned it down, which I think is going to be beneficial to them. So although John and I want to sit here and give you a lot of criticisms about this attorney, if that was an intentional act, I think John would agree that was really a good move.
Yeah, it was. I'm with you. You're right. She does look like a librarian. That's how she looks. And some of our viewers were saying she was looking kind of smug at certain points. And so we'll have to watch today and try to notice her facial expressions as the testimony continues. Oh, we're out of time.
I wouldn't trust her around my Dewey Decimal System, though. I wouldn't trust her around the Dewey Decimal System.
John Phillips, Michael J. Brown, thank you both so much. That is it for opening statements. We'll be right back live.